Yeah, and then eventually the superhero stuff started to attract me more, and then I became officially a collector probably around 7 or 8 years old, I think, and then just had to have every issue of Amazing Spider-Man. And
Yeah.
while that was happening, you're watching Saturday morning, and the Spider-Man cartoon is on for me. The Hanna-Barbera superheroes are on, Johnny Quest, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
that
So
stuff is awesome.
I'm full of sugar smacks, and I'm like, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. After I run off my sugar high, I gotta come back and I start drawing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
Were
for
you
me,
drawing always when you were a little kid too?
yeah. I still have, I probably have 100 comics that I drew between 6 to 13, something like that.
Oh wow, you
And that
still
I
have
was,
them? You
yeah,
still
oh
have them?
yeah.
Yeah, do you
Sure,
really?
sure. Classics like the Fruit Family and
I got a few of
stuff
those
like
in my
that.
collection too.
Yeah, I actually what I was going to say was, for me it was about the storytelling too. It wasn't just
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to draw this picture, this is a great picture. For me it was like, I got to do comics, I got to tell a
Yeah, you wanted
story.
to like learn how to blend the
Yes,
aspects, right? The
yes,
writing and the art.
yes. So had to have a cover and then a splash page and then panel to panel, and usually I would just go in cold. I start with a cover and then a splash page, and then I just start drawing panels. I didn't know where the story was going, I was just drawing.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to stop on page 8 or page 10, and then my story was still going and I'm on page 7. I'm like, oh my god, I got to finish the story. So the last couple pages each have like 10 panels on each page,
Yeah, right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the brain was worked towards the story. Pictures tell a story. You finish the story by the time you run out of pictures. So it was always that way. And
you see that. I see that a lot with like first time indie comics. Like you can see like towards the end of the book, it's like packed with word balloons and like extra panels, and it's like, but it's like in your head you're like, I've been there, so I know this guy's gonna keep learning, and just kind of learn how to pace it out, and like that's just something that you learn over time, I think. As the more you do it, but you have to have like, I think, like comics is in your blood somewhat, like it's like you think you can learn it, but at the same time, it's just when you try to explain it to someone, it's like hard to explain because it's like part of your being in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I totally get that.
Yeah, it's in my bloodstream. I can't do anything else. That's
right.
The blessing of it and the curse of it is like
it is. Yeah, it is. It's like like even now, like I'm just like, it's like, it's bad for you, but you love it. You love it so much that you got to keep going,
Comics
so it's like
a harsh mistress.
It is. It totally is. Johnny, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, just kind of circling back around to like writing and laying out panels and stuff. Like I find myself more often than not overwriting and having like 7 or 8 panels on a page. And then realizing that, like, oh, I can trim this back. Oh, I can remove this panel. And I think a lot of that comes from when I start to visualize the story in my head. I think of it like a movie or like moving picture. And then I'm like, well, I really don't need this panel. I don't need this panel. I don't need this panel. I just have to condense all these words across the remaining panels.
Right. Well, good for you. Let the art do it for you.
Treat it like a sculpture. It's good for you that you have that much material and you don't have to stretch it out, right? So it's like you got a lot of material. You can start hacking scenes out and stuff like that. That's a good position to be in. Totally.
Yeah, rather than not having enough and having to like every page be like a full page splash.
You still have 10 pages to go in your 20-page book.
I've been on both sides of that though. I've been on both sides of that though, where I've had too much, I had to cut back, and where I've had too little and I'm trying to expand it, and I'm spinning wheels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's tough though. Like even like now when I'm making, issues, I'm like always shooting for like the sweet spot of like 24 to 26 pages. And it's like when you're outlining it or it's in your head, it's like trying to figure out how many pages you're going to need. It's impossible. So you kind of like guess at it, like and try to build your outline around that. So
Mm-hmm.
far it's been kind of like I'm outlining and thumbnailing my newest issue right now, and it's like I'm curious if I'm gonna hit the 24 pages or not, you know. So
yeah. How do you guys usually work? Do you write scripts for your artists?
I do, yeah.
Do you write full script?
Yeah, I do it, and I don't recommend this for anybody to write the way I do. I always write without a format in mind. Like, so when I sit down and have the outline in my head, I just write it like a screenplay with no, like, I don't worry about writing like panel 1, page 2 or whatever, and do it like that. I just worry about getting the dialogue, and I just write it that. Then I go back and I sit down with thumbnails, and then I worry about doing the panel description. So I kind of try to break down the page that way.
Oh, so you come back after you've written the script and break it into panels for the
I treat it like a screenplay first, and then I come back and redo it. So it's like kind of like doing the same thing twice, you know what I mean? After you've rewritten it already 4 times or whatever. But it works for me because I have a hard time as I'm writing dialogue to just stop and do the panel descriptions. Like, I want it to flow.
Keep the flow. You got to create a flow going and then come back and break it up. Did you ever give just the script to the artist? Because that would be primo. Just give me the story and I'll break it down and I'll choose the
I have done that. I usually have that conversation with the artist up front. Like, and I did that with Kid Switch, and I think 1 or 2 episodes of I think I did with 1 issue of Hero Envy with George. Oh, cool. But like with Ian just wants, he's a work for hire guy, so he just wants to take my thumbnails and then go for it.
So you even do thumbnails for him?
Yeah, but they're very shitty. Like they're very shitty. Like here's a thumbnail for let me see if I have one over here. I have some, like, I'll do like a cover. Like, here's like a cover for like, let me see if I can make myself big here. This is like a cover for the Mighty Mascots Giant Volume 2. So I kind of send him and then I write what's happening here. But it's very like, very, very like high school, or
I can work with that. That's great.
Yeah, but like normally, like if an artist wants to do it, like, I knock yourself out. I'll just be like, here's what I kind of want, and then go for it. I prefer that because it's easier on me.
The caveat there for me is that sometimes I'll write with like pages 2, 4, 6, 8 and page turns in mind. Okay. So where if an artist starts to take liberties, they break that. Right. Yep. So that's where I usually have to indicate and say, okay, well, I want this to be a splash page, or I want this to come at a page turn. You know what I mean? And those are intricate beats that I'd have to, explicitly write about. But even in the process of doing that, I try to keep it as open-ended as possible for the artist to put their, creative liberty onto it too.
That's cool.
Allow them to put their thumbprint in. One thing I learned really early on is that when you dictate every finite detail to the artist, it becomes a chore for them. When you give them a very loose script and allow them to run wild with it, they pour their heart into it more, and the next thing you know, they're actually, giving you a solid effort.
Yeah. I think everybody's different. So how did you write? How did you write this one? Surrounded? Was this full script?
Yeah.
What did your layout look like for the cover?
The cover wasn't done, so I had to get something together for convention exclusive.
So how did you write Surrounded by Death?
So Surrounded by Death was actually adapted from somebody's manuscript that was meant to be a novel.
Oh, really?
And I go, no, wait a minute, this would work really better as a comic book. Mm-hmm. And then I went in there, just, put it into comic book format. Mm-hmm. And, it changed things around a little bit, consulted with them. I met my collaborator in San Diego at a speed dating kind of like creator artist thing, networking event. And, I just, was like, oh, this is a really cool concept. Let's work on it. And then, we kind of just made it our own,
Oh, cool. That's great.
That's awesome.
It's an adaptation of text. That's another step further.
That was never produced though, so that was just kind of like a.
So they never made the novel after the fact.
No,
but you still started with something. I mean, that's how you guys are talking about how I did these books. The Fabian Cousteau expeditions. The writer gave me a script. He's not really familiar with comics, how to write for comics. So I just told him, just write the story, give me a complete story, tell me what happens in each scene, and I'll just break it down. I'll take care of all the which angle this should be. And invariably I find that
you have more control, right?
Well, I like that kind of control, and I can also bring stuff to it. Like if I can make room for character gags and poses and shots that reveal character. It kind of enhances the story. That's how I kind of like to work. But, do you ever see Alan Moore's scripts for The Watchmen?
Yes.
It's like 3 pages describing the first panel on a page.
That's insane to me. Like,
I couldn't
it's
work.
Alan Moore, right? So
I couldn't work that way. But if Alan Moore said, "Joe, I got to work with you. Here's my script," I'd be like,
"Yeah, you're right there, going.
I'm there, buddy. Let's roll. Let's do this."
You're sitting there reading the book just for panel 1.